Hello, sweet friends, and welcome back for some more chapters in James and the Giant Peach. Look like some of you got to watch those yesterday, so that's exciting. So, yesterday we met James Henry Trotter, and at the age of 4, his life changed drastically. He had two loving parents. They lived by the ocean in a really beautiful house. He was a very happy little boy. He had friends, and it was just a lovely life. But as we soon learned out in chapter 1, James's parents went into the city and an angry, hungry rhinoceros escaped from the zoo and ate both of his parents, which we know cannot really happen, but that's how his parents died. They were eaten by a rhinoceros. Because there was no one left in the house to care for James, he was sent to live with his two aunts, Aunt Spiker and Aunt Sponge, who we also learned yesterday are very horrible, terrible human beings in general, but they really despise and hate James. Yes, hate is a strong word, but that is the way they treat him. They don't want him. He is just a problem that they can't get rid of. So they put him through terrible things. They don't allow him to have friends. They won't take him anywhere. They make him do all the work around the house. While they sit back and talk about themselves and then talk terribly about each other. So that is James's new life since he was 4. He is now 7 in our story, and he has run away from his aunts by the house after chopping wood when he realizes how much he really does miss his old life and how much he really wishes that they were kind enough to take him to the ocean, to the seaside, to see some friends, anything but staying in this miserable house. So he has run and he is hiding behind some bushes at the very edge of the garden by the fence that he is not allowed to cross, or they have threatened to lock him up. So he is crying and he's very, very upset. So that left us at the end of chapter 2. So we are now at chapter 3. It was at this point that the first thing of all, the rather peculiar thing that led to so many other much more peculiar things to happen to him. For suddenly, just behind him, James heard a rustling of leaves. He turned around and saw an old man in a crazy dark green suit emerging from the bushes. He was a very small old man. He had a huge bald head and a face that was covered all over with bristly black whiskers. He stopped when he was about 3 yards away, and he stood there, leaning on his stick and staring hard at James. When he spoke, his voice was very slow and creaky. "Come closer to me, little boy," he said, beckoning James with a finger. "Come right up close to me, and I will show you something wonderful." James was too frightened to move. The old man hobbled a step or two nearer. Then he put a hand into the pocket of his jacket and took out a small white paper bag. Now, in real life, if a stranger tells you to do something like this, you may want to keep your distance. But this man has kind of appeared in the garden, so somehow he has gotten over the fence. So James is like, "What in the world are you doing here? Who are you? I don't know." So would you see him holding the bag out to James? "You see this?" he whispered, waving the bag gently to and fro in front of James's face. "You know what this is, my dear? You know what's inside this little bag?" Then he came nearer still, leaning forward and pushing his face so close to James that James could feel breath blowing on his cheeks. The breath smelled musty and stale and slightly mildewed, like air in an old cellar. "Take a look, my dear," he said, opening the bag and tilting it toward James. Inside it, James could see a mass of tiny green things that looked like little stones or crystals, each one about the size of a grain of rice. They were extraordinarily beautiful, and there was a strange brightness about them, a sort of luminous quality that made them glow and sparkle in the most wonderful way. "Listen to them," the old man whispered. "Listen to them move." James stared into the bag, and sure enough, there was a faint rustling sound coming up from inside it. And then he noticed that all the thousands of little green things were slowly, very, very slowly, stirring about and moving over each other as though they were alive. "There's more power and magic in those things in there than in all the rest of the world put together," said the old man softly. But what are they? James muttered, finding his voice at last. Where do they come from? Aha, the old man whispered. You'd never guess that. He was crouching a little now and pushing his face still closer and closer to James until the tip of his long nose actually was touching James on his forehead. Then suddenly, he jumped back and began waving his stick madly in the air. Crocodile tongues, he cried. 1,000 long, slimy crocodile tongues boiled up in the skull of a dead witch for 20 days and nights with the eyeballs of a lizard. Add the fingers of a young monkey, the gizzard of a pig, the beak of a green parrot, the juice of a porcupine, and 3 small spoonfuls of sugar. Stew for another week, and then let the moon do the rest. All at once, he pushed the white paper bag into James's hands and said, Here, you take it. It's yours. Now, what an interesting man, right? We don't really know what these green things are. He's claiming they are crocodile tongues that were cooked in some crazy way. He's very peculiar. Do you see where that word comes in handy? Rather peculiar. Not super peculiar, but enough to make you kind of scratch your head like, huh? Now he has taken this bag and he has shoved it to James and saying, take it, it's yours. What in the world is James supposed to do with, if there are crocodile tongues, whatever these little slow-moving thousands of little green things in this bag that glow? What is James supposed to do with them? You have an idea? I don't really have any ideas. That sounds kind of interesting. Put him on his shelf? Save him? He didn't have any friends to show, does he? Because he's not allowed to leave the house. If he was to show Aunt Spiker and Aunt Sponge, how would that go over? I agree, not well at all. They would probably be so furious that he talked to someone he didn't know. Well, let's go on. Chapter 4 is very short, but let's see what it says. James Henry Trotter stood there, clutching the bag and staring at the old man. And now, the old man said, all you've got to do is this. Take a large jug of water, pour all the little green things into it. Then very slowly, one by one, add 10 hairs from your own head. That sets them off. It gets them going. In a couple of minutes, the water will begin to froth and bubble furiously. And as soon as that happens, you must quickly drink it all down, the whole jugful in one gulp. Could you drink a whole jug of water in one gulp? That's asking a lot. Not to mention all these green crawly things are in it. And then, my dear, you will feel it churning and boiling in your stomach. The steam will start coming out of your mouth. And immediately after that, marvelous things will start happening to you. Fabulous, unbelievable things, and you will never be miserable again in your life. Because you are miserable, aren't you? You needn't tell me. I know all about it. Now, off you go and do exactly as I say. And don't whisper a word of this to those 2 horrible aunts of yours. Not one word. And don't let those green things in there get away from you either. Because if they do escape, then they will be working their magic upon someone else instead of you. And that isn't what you want at all, is it, my dear? Whoever they meet first, be it a bug, insect, animal, or tree, that will be the one who gets the full power of their magic. So hold the bag tight. Don't tear the paper. Off you go. Hurry up. Don't wait. Now's the time. Hurry. With that, the old man turned away and disappeared into the bushes. Now, isn't that interesting? Or should we say peculiar? That seems to be a big word in this book. So the old man has given James this bag, and he has told him to do something very interesting with these green crawly things. He says to put them all in a jug of water, put 10 hairs from James's own head, he has to pull them out in there to activate or make them start doing their magic thing. And once it starts getting bubbly, which is hard to drink lots of bubbles at one time, drink it all down in one gulp. But he has told James, if you do this, only good things will happen to you. You will no longer be miserable like you are with your 2 aunts. That's a pretty big promise right there. And James is pretty miserable. Now, if you were James and you had to live the way James is living, would you do what the man said? Would you be willing to try to drink a jug of water with these wiggly green things in it? Is it worth it? considering you don't know who this man is, where he came from, what the things in the bag actually are. He's giving you some silly nonsense about crocodile tongues cooked inside of a witch's skull with lizard eyeballs. It's just very interesting, right? But would you do it? I mean, James does have a pretty terrible life. What's he got to lose? All right, so find someone in your house today and tell them about James and what this old man gave him and how this man came and went. We don't really know, do we? So I hope you enjoyed that. So we're going to stop there for today on chapter 4. These are pretty short chapters, so we'll probably do 2 chapters for each video. And we'll see. Tomorrow we'll see, does James actually drink these green things? And what happens when he does? If he does. We'll have to wait and see. All right, I hope you enjoyed our adventure today, and I will see you again next time. Miss you all.